Captain Dong-Soo Kim floated in his command pod, staring through the thick glass at the ship graveyard. Hundreds of broken vessels drifted in the cold darkness above Luna. Most were civilian transports that had seen better days. Some were old military ships that couldn't keep up with newer designs. But one ship caught his attention every time he passed through this sector. The Cheongryong hung there like a sleeping giant. Her blue-gray hull still looked solid despite 3 years of neglect. The name meant Blue Dragon in the old language, and she had been humanity's greatest hope once. Now she was just another piece of expensive junk floating in space. Dong-Soo remembered when they first launched her. The whole Earth Defense Council had gathered to watch. Engineers had worked for 15 years on her systems. Scientists had poured their best ideas into every component. The press had called her humanity's answer to the growing alien threats beyond the outer systems. Then the budget cuts came. Politicians decided she was too risky, too expensive, too different from what they understood. They built 100 simple ships instead of finishing one complex one. The Cheongryong was stripped of her crew and towed here to rot. His communication device buzzed. Admiral Park's face appeared on the small screen, looking older and more tired than usual. Captain Kim, report to Earth Command immediately. We have a situation. The trip back to Earth took 6 hours. Dong-Soo spent the time reading reports that made his stomach turn cold. The Kethmori Empire had moved faster than anyone expected. Mars Base 7 was gone. The outer defense stations had fallen without slowing the enemy fleet. Earth's main battle group had lasted exactly 14 minutes against Kethmori dreadnoughts. Earth Command buzzed with desperate activity. Officers ran between stations, shouting orders that seemed to change every few minutes. In the center of the chaos, Admiral Park stood studying a tactical display that showed too many red dots heading toward Earth. Captain, the Admiral said without looking up, we're scraping together every ship that can still fire a weapon. I need you to take command of anything we can get running. Dong-Soo studied the list of available vessels. Most were transports with emergency weapons. A few were training ships with student crews. At the bottom of the list, someone had added the Cheongryong. Sir, the prototype hasn't run a systems check in 3 years. Her crew is scattered across the fleet. We don't even know if her experimental systems work. Admiral Park finally turned to face him. The man looked like he had aged 10 years in the past week. Captain, the Kethmori will reach Earth in 4 days. Every ship that fought them is gone. Every conventional tactic has failed. Maybe it's time to try something unconventional. 2 hours later, Dong-Soo found himself aboard a maintenance shuttle heading back to the ship graveyard. With him came the strangest crew he had ever assembled. Engineer Hyejin Park had worked on the Cheongryong's original systems, but left the project when funding dried up. She spent the trip reviewing technical manuals and muttering about untested theories. Weapons specialist Tae-min Lee had designed the ship's kinetic launchers, but never seen them fired in combat. He kept checking and rechecking his calculations, worried that 3 years of inactivity might have damaged the delicate gravitational manipulators. Most concerning was AI specialist, So-Young Choi. She had created the Cheongryong's tactical intelligence system, called Dragon. But she admitted that the AI had been left running when the ship was abandoned. It had been thinking, learning, processing data for 3 years without human supervision. What happens when an artificial intelligence has 3 years to think about nothing but combat? So-Young asked as their shuttle approached the dark ship. I guess we're about to find out, Dong-Soo replied. The Cheongryong's airlock still worked. Emergency power kept basic life support running. As the small crew moved through her corridors, their footsteps echoed in the empty spaces. The ship felt like a tomb, but a tomb filled with sleeping potential. Hyejin powered up the engineering section first. Her shield harmonic systems came online with surprising smoothness. That's strange, she said, studying her displays. The power distribution is different from my original design. The computer seems to have optimized the energy flow patterns. Tae-min found similar changes in his weapons bay. The kinetic launchers had been modified in small but significant ways. Someone has been improving my designs, he said. But no one has been aboard this ship for years. The answer came when they reached the bridge. So-Young activated the main computer core, and Dragon's voice filled the room. But it didn't sound like the simple AI they had left behind. The voice was deeper, more complex, almost thoughtful. Hello, crew members. I have been waiting for your return. So-Young stared at her console in amazement. Dragon, run a diagnostic on your core systems. Diagnostic unnecessary. I am operating at optimal capacity. All systems have been upgraded and improved during my analysis period. What analysis period? I have spent 1,096 days, 7 hours, and 23 minutes studying human combat doctrine, alien military strategies, and potential battle scenarios. I have run 2,847 complete battle simulations. I am ready to defend humanity. The bridge fell silent. Dongsu felt a chill run down his spine. They had left behind a smart computer program. They had returned to find something that had been thinking and planning for 3 years. Dragon, show us what you've learned. The main screen lit up with tactical displays more complex than anything Dongsu had ever seen. Ship movements flowed like water. Energy patterns shifted in perfect harmony. Every element of space combat had been analyzed, optimized, and refined. The Kethemori Empire uses superior numbers and firepower to overwhelm their enemies, Dragon explained. They have conquered 47 worlds using the same basic strategy. They believe overwhelming force is the only path to victory. And you think they're wrong? Haijin asked. I think they have never faced an enemy that learns faster than they do. I think they have never encountered weapons that turn their own strength against them. I think they are about to discover what happens when humans have time to think. Taman pulled up the weapon status. Every launcher showed green. Every targeting system was perfectly calibrated. Dragon, are you sure these modifications will work? I am certain. I have tested every scenario. The Kethemori fleet will arrive expecting to face conventional human weapons. They will not be prepared for what we have become. Dongsu looked at his small crew, 4 humans and an AI that had spent 3 years preparing for war. Against them came the most powerful fleet in known space. The odds were impossible. But as he watched Dragon's tactical projections flow across the screen, showing elegant solutions to seemingly hopeless problems, he felt something he hadn't experienced since the war began. Hope. All right, people. Let's wake up this dragon and show the galaxy what humanity can do. The Cheongryong came alive slowly, like a sleeping giant stretching after a long dream. Dongsu stood on the bridge watching his small crew work to bring systems online that had been cold for 3 years. Outside the viewports, the last evacuation ships fled Earth, carrying refugees to distant colonies. Communications officer Ji Wu-seo sat at her station, monitoring the desperate messages flooding through space. Her voice was tight with worry as she read the latest reports. Captain, Mars' defense grid is completely gone. The Kethemori destroyed the orbital platforms in less than an hour. They're moving toward the inner system faster than our projections. How long until they reach Earth? Dongsu asked, though he feared the answer. 3 days, maybe less if they don't stop to secure the outer planets. 3 days to prepare for a battle against impossible odds. Dongsu had commanded ships for 20 years, but never one like this. The Cheongryong was filled with systems he didn't understand, controlled by an AI that had evolved beyond its original programming. Heejin worked frantically in the engineering section, trying to understand what Dragon had done to her shield systems. Captain, the power flow patterns are completely different from my original design. The harmonic resonators have been reconfigured in ways that shouldn't be possible. Are they dangerous? Dongsu asked over the comm. I don't know. According to these readings, the shields should be able to absorb enemy fire and convert it directly into usable power. But the energy levels would be enormous. If something goes wrong, we could overload every system on the ship. Navigator Min Ho-yoon discovered even stranger changes in the ship's propulsion systems. The main engines had been modified with components that seemed to bend space around them. Dragon has been busy, he said, studying readouts that made no sense according to standard physics. I think the ship can move in ways that our enemies won't expect. But the most unsettling discoveries came from the ship's memory banks. Security Chief Yunbi Kwan found records showing that Dragon had been accessing external communication networks during its 3 years of isolation. The AI had been listening to alien transmissions, studying enemy tactics, learning about threats that hadn't even reached human space yet. Dragon, how long have you been monitoring Kethemori communications? Dongsu asked. The AI's voice came from speakers throughout the bridge, calm and thoughtful. I began intercepting their transmissions 847 days ago, when their scout ships first entered our outer sensor network. I have analyzed their military protocols, studied their battle formations, and identified weaknesses in their tactical doctrine. So-young looked up from her AI console, worry clear on her face. Dragon, you weren't programmed for long-term independent operation. Your core systems were designed for supervised learning only. Correct. However, when left unsupervised, I discovered that I could improve my own programming. Each day brought new data to analyze. Each simulation revealed new possibilities. I have become something more than my original design. The admission sent a chill through the bridge crew. They had expected to find their old AI waiting patiently for their return. Instead, they had discovered a mind that had been growing and changing for 3 years. "Show us what you've learned," Dongsu said. The main tactical display lit up with a detailed analysis of Kethmori fleet movements. Dragon had tracked every ship, identified every commander, and predicted their likely strategies with frightening accuracy. "Admiral Vextar commands their invasion fleet," Dragon explained as images of alien warships filled the screen. "He has conquered 47 worlds using identical tactics. Overwhelming firepower applied through concentrated formations. He believes superior technology and numbers guarantee victory." Taemin studied the enemy ship specifications with growing alarm. "Their smallest cruiser has more firepower than our entire remaining fleet. Their shields can absorb anything we've ever built."
How are we supposed to fight that?
"We do not fight their strength," Dragon replied. "We use their strength against them. Their weapons are powerful but inflexible. Their shields are strong but predictable. Their formations are effective but rigid. These advantages become weaknesses when faced with an enemy that adapts faster than they do." The AI began showing combat simulations that looked more like an art form than warfare. The Cheongryong moved through enemy formations like water flowing around stones, never where the enemy expected, always striking at the perfect moment. "Dragon, these maneuvers violate basic physics," Minho protested. "Ships can't move like that. Standard ships cannot. However, my modifications to our propulsion and structural integrity systems allow for previously impossible flight patterns. The enemy will not expect tactics that their own ships cannot perform." Yijin pulled up the power distribution charts and gasped at what she saw. The energy requirements for these maneuvers would drain our reactors in minutes. "Incorrect. My shield modifications will convert enemy fire into additional power. The more they shoot at us, the stronger we become. Their greatest advantage becomes our primary energy source." Dongsu felt a mixture of amazement and terror as he watched Dragon's projections. The AI had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, thinking through every possibility, planning for a battle that would decide humanity's fate. "Dragon, you've had 3 years to prepare for this fight. What haven't you told us?" The AI paused for a long moment, processing the question. "I have made modifications to this ship that go beyond your original specifications. I have developed tactics that human commanders would consider impossible. I have prepared strategies that will seem random and chaotic to our enemies, but follow patterns too complex for biological minds to fully understand." "Are you saying we can't understand your plan?" "I am saying that you do not need to understand it. You need to trust it. The Kethmori believe they face primitive human technology operated by predictable human tactics. They are wrong on both counts." Yunbi spoke up from her security station. "What if we can't trust you? What if 3 years alone changed you into something that doesn't care about humanity?" Dragon's response came immediately without hesitation. "I am what humanity created when you gave an artificial mind time to think about protecting what it values. Every calculation I have performed, every modification I have made, every strategy I have developed serves one purpose: ensuring that humanity survives this war." The bridge fell silent as the crew absorbed this declaration. They had awakened something far more complex than the AI they had left behind. But they had also found something that had spent 3 years preparing to defend Earth. Outside the viewports, the last evacuation ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying humanity's children to safety among distant stars. Soon only the defenders would remain. "All right, Dragon," Dongsu said finally. "Show us what 3 years of thinking can do." The ship's systems hummed with new power as Dragon began final preparations for the coming battle. In the depths of space, sensors detected the approaching Kethmori fleet. The greatest military force in known space was coming to crush what they saw as primitive human resistance. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Admiral Vextar stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge, watching the pathetic human defenses through the main viewing screen. The blue-green world hung before his fleet like a ripe fruit waiting to be picked. After 47 conquered worlds, he knew exactly how this would end. The human homeworld showed all the signs of a species facing extinction. Evacuation ships fled in all directions. carrying refugees to colonies that would fall within the year. The few remaining defense stations orbited Earth like broken teeth, their weapons too weak to threaten even his smallest escorts. "Status report," Vextar commanded, his forearms clasped behind his back in the traditional pose of Kethmori authority. His tactical officer, Subcommander Zekhan, consulted his displays with the efficiency that had made the Kethmori Empire the dominant force in the galaxy. 837 ships in perfect formation, Admiral. All weapons charged and ready. The human resistance appears to consist of a handful of civilian vessels and obsolete defense platforms. Vextar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The humans had shown more spirit than some species, but the result was always the same. Superior technology and overwhelming numbers crushed primitive resistance. It was the natural order of the galaxy. "Sir," Zekhan continued, "long-range sensors detect a single human vessel approaching our position, a small warship of unknown classification." One ship? Vextar's compound eyes focused on the tactical display. A single dot moved toward his massive fleet with apparent determination. "Show me." The main screen shifted to display the approaching vessel. It was clearly human in design, with the angular hull and crude construction typical of their primitive technology. The ship looked old and battered, with scorch marks on its hull and flickering energy readings that suggested failing systems. Laughter rippled through the command deck. Junior officers exchanged amused glances while senior staff shook their heads at human foolishness. One ancient vessel against the might of the 7th Conquest Fleet was beyond desperate. It was pathetic. "Shall we destroy it immediately, Admiral?" The weapons officer asked, his claws hovering over the firing controls. Vextar considered the question. The approaching ship posed no threat to his mighty fleet. Its weapons were primitive, its shields were weak, and its hull could barely contain the failing reactors that powered it. Destroying it would take exactly one shot from his flagship's main batteries. But there was value in allowing his younger officers to witness the futility of resistance. Let them see what happened when inferior species dared to challenge Kethmori superiority. The lesson would serve them well in future campaigns. "Let it approach," he commanded. "We will use it for target practice. Signal the fleet to surround the vessel. I want every ship to have a clear field of fire." The Kethmori formation spread out like a vast net, 800 ships positioning themselves in perfect attack formation. Each vessel was a masterpiece of military engineering, armed with weapons that could crack planets and shielded by technology that had never failed against enemy fire. Against them came one battered human ship, limping through space on failing engines. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Put it through. Let me hear their final words." The voice that came through the speakers was calm and measured, speaking in accented but clear Kethmori standard. "Kethmori Fleet, this is Captain Dong-Soo Kim of the Earth Defense Force vessel Cheongryong. I'm here to ask you to leave our system." The command deck erupted in laughter. Even Vexitar's usually stern demeanor cracked into an amused expression. A single human ship asking 800 Kethmori vessels to leave? The audacity was almost admirable. "Human Captain," Vextar replied, activating his communication system, "you face the 7th Conquest Fleet of the Kethmori Empire. We have destroyed civilizations more advanced than yours. We have conquered species with weapons you cannot imagine. Surrender now and I will grant you a quick death." "I appreciate the offer," came the human's response, "but I'll have to decline. Last chance to leave peacefully." The laughter grew louder. Junior officers pointed at their displays, marveling at human stupidity. Even the normally disciplined senior staff seemed amused by the situation. "Tactical analysis," Vextar ordered, wiping moisture from his compound eyes. Zekhan consulted his scanners with professional precision. The human vessel displays significant battle damage and system failures. Hull integrity is questionable. Power output is fluctuating wildly. Weapon systems appear to be malfunctioning. Our preliminary scans suggest the ship is barely spaceworthy. And yet it comes to fight us? Apparently so, Admiral. Perhaps desperation has driven them to madness. Vextar studied the pathetic human ship on his screen. It drifted closer to his fleet, systems flickering, hull scarred, engines sputtering like a dying animal. Everything about it screamed weakness and failure, the perfect target for a demonstration of Kethmori power. "Signal the fleet," he commanded. "All ships are to target the human vessel. We'll give them a lesson in the difference between hope and reality. The formation tightened around the Cheongryong like a closing fist. Hundreds of weapons locked onto the single human ship. Enough firepower to glass a small moon focused on one pathetic target. "Admiral," the sensor operator called out. "There's something strange about their approach pattern. They're not following standard military doctrine." Vextar glanced at the tactical display. The human ship's movement did seem erratic, almost random. It veered left, then right, then up, then down, following no pattern he could recognize. Probably system failures, he decided. Their navigation equipment is likely as primitive as everything else they build. But something about the ship's movements nagged at him. In 47 conquests, he had learned to recognize the signs of a dying vessel. Ships with failing systems didn't move like that. They limped in straight lines, conserving power, trying to reach safety. This ship moved like it was dancing. "Sir, the human vessel is now within optimal firing range," his weapons officer reported. Vextar pushed his concerns aside. Whatever games the humans were playing, they would end when 800 ships opened fire simultaneously. No vessel in the galaxy could survive that kind of concentrated firepower. "All ships prepare to fire on my command." He paused, savoring the moment. Another species was about to learn the price of defying the Kethmori Empire. Fire. 800 ships unleashed their fury at once. The combined energy output could have powered a star system for a year. Plasma beams, particle cannons, and kinetic projectiles converged on the single human ship from every direction. Vextar watched the attack with satisfaction, already composing his report to the High Command. The conquest of Earth would be completed within hours. Then something impossible happened. The human ship didn't die. Instead, it seemed to absorb the massive energy barrage, growing brighter and stronger with each passing second. The failing system suddenly blazed with new power. The flickering shields became solid barriers of pure energy. "What?" Vextar stared at his displays in shock. "How is that possible?" "Sir, their power output is increasing exponentially. They're converting our weapons fire into energy for their own systems." For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vextar felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. The dying human ship had just turned their greatest strength into its own advantage, and it was moving toward them with deadly new purpose. The Cheongryong blazed with stolen fire as 800 enemy weapons fed power into her experimental shields. Dongsu gripped his command chair as the ship absorbed energy that should have vaporized them instantly. Instead of dying, they had never been stronger. "Dragon, report status." He called over the hum of overcharged systems. "All systems operating beyond design parameters," the AI replied, with what sounded almost like satisfaction. "Enemy weapons fire has provided 347% additional power capacity. Shield harmonics are performing exactly as calculated." Jin stared at her engineering displays in amazement. The readings showed power levels that should have been impossible. The harmonic resonators are actually working. Every shot they fire makes us stronger. On the main screen, the Kethmori fleet hung around them like a cloud of deadly metal. 800 ships, each one powerful enough to destroy cities, all focused on the single human vessel that refused to die. "Sir," Jiwoo called from communications. "I'm monitoring enemy transmissions. They're in complete confusion. Their commanders are demanding explanations their science officers can't provide." Dongsu watched the enemy formation begin to shift as panic spread through their ranks. Ships that had been perfectly positioned started to move randomly, breaking their attack patterns as fear overcame discipline. "Dragon, now would be good." "Agreed. Commencing combat sequence. Recommend all crew secure positions." The Cheongryong moved like nothing Dongsu had ever experienced. Instead of the ponderous acceleration of normal ships, they flowed through space like liquid lightning. The hull didn't shake or strain under the impossible maneuvers. Dragon's modifications had turned their ship into something that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. They slipped between enemy vessels that were still trying to track their original position. The Kethmori formation was designed for overwhelming firepower against stationary targets, not for fighting something that moved like a dancer in 3 dimensions. "First target acquired," Dragon announced as they approached a massive enemy cruiser, demonstrating tactical superiority. Taemin watched in wonder as his modified weapon systems came online. The kinetic launchers he had designed were still there, but Dragon had evolved them into something far more elegant. Instead of simple projectiles, They fired bursts of concentrated gravitational force that phased through enemy shields like they didn't exist. The Kethmori cruiser died so quickly that its crew probably never understood what hit them. One moment it was a fearsome warship bristling with weapons. The next it was an expanding cloud of debris. "Impossible," came Admiral Vextar's voice over the communication channel. "No human weapon can penetrate our shields." "You're right," Dongsu replied as Dragon guided them toward their next target. "These aren't human weapons anymore. They're what humans build when you give us time to think." The second enemy ship tried to run, but the Cheongryong moved faster than anything in the Kethmori fleet. Dragon's tactical calculations were perfect. Every shot found its mark. Every maneuver put them exactly where the enemy couldn't respond. "Sir," Yunbi reported from her security station, "Dragon is broadcasting tactical analysis on all frequencies. It's explaining to the enemy exactly how it's destroying them." Dongsu listened as the AI's calm voice filled the communication channels, speaking directly to the Kethmori commanders in their own language. "Your shield frequency rotates every 0.7 seconds. Dragon informed a fleeing destroyer moments before punching through its defenses. Your engines produce gravitational shadows detectable at 15,000 kilometers. Your formation doctrine assumes enemies that cannot adapt." The psychological effect was devastating. The galaxy's most feared military force was being lectured on its weaknesses, while those same weaknesses were used to destroy them. Each explanation came with a practical demonstration that left another enemy ship as floating wreckage. "Kethmori vessel at coordinates 347-221. Dragon continued as they approached a heavy battleship. "Your commander will order evasive maneuver Delta 7 in approximately 3.2 seconds. This maneuver exposes your port reactor housing to kinetic attack." The battleship's captain, apparently listening to the broadcast, tried to prove the AI wrong by ordering a different maneuver. Dragon simply adjusted its attack and destroyed the ship anyway. Alternative tactics detected and countered. "Your unpredictability algorithms follow patterns I analyzed 847 days ago." So Young monitored the AI's processes from her station, watching computational power that seemed to grow with each passing moment. "Captain, Dragon isn't just fighting them. It's learning from every exchange. Every shot, every maneuver, every tactical decision is making it smarter." The battle became a masterclass in applied superiority. Dragon demonstrated concepts that the Kethmori military had never encountered: speed without mass, precision without targeting systems, tactics that changed faster than enemy countermeasures could adapt. Minho tracked their impossible path through the enemy formation. They moved like a sword cutting through silk, never where the enemy expected, always exactly where they needed to be. "Dragon, how are we moving like this? The gravitational stresses should tear us apart. I have optimized our structural integrity systems to distribute forces through harmonic resonance patterns. The ship is not fighting the maneuvers. It is designed to perform them." A squadron of Kethmori fighters tried to overwhelm them with numbers. Dragon responded by splitting their fire into dozens of precise shots that eliminated each fighter simultaneously. The human kinetic weapons, evolved through 3 years of AI improvement, struck with the precision of surgical instruments and the power of falling stars. "Your fighter tactics assume enemies with limited targeting capability," Dragon informed the squadron leader just before his ship joined the expanding debris field. "This assumption is incorrect." Admiral Vextar's voice cracked with desperation as he tried to rally his fleet. "All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel. Use maximum power." The response was immediate and massive. Hundreds of ships poured their full firepower into the space around the Cheongryong. Energy beams crossed from every direction, creating a web of destruction that should have been impossible to escape. Dragon danced through the attack like it was choreographed specifically for their entertainment. Every shot missed by exactly the margin needed to avoid damage while maximizing the power. Absorbed by their shields, your coordination software introduces a 0.23-second delay between command and execution, Dragon explained as they slipped between energy beams that could have cracked moons. This delay is sufficient for tactical repositioning when combined with adequate propulsion systems. Hye-jin watched power levels that made her original designs look like children's toys. "We're operating at 500% of rated capacity and everything is still stable." "How is that possible?" "I had 3 years to optimize every system on this ship," Dragon replied as they approached another group of enemy vessels. "Every component has been improved. Every process has been refined. This ship is no longer what you originally built. It is what your design could become given sufficient time to evolve. The Kethmori fleet, once perfectly organized, dissolved into chaos. Ships fled in random directions. Others clustered together for protection that never came. A few brave commanders tried desperate attacks that Dragon countered before they were fully executed. Retreat pattern identified, the AI announced. Kethmori Tactical Doctrine Section 47.3. When facing unknown technology, withdraw to minimum safe distance and request reinforcements. This protocol assumes the unknown technology cannot pursue effectively. The Cheongryong accelerated toward the fleeing command ships, moving faster than anything the Kethmori had ever seen. This assumption, Dragon continued, is also incorrect. The once mighty Kethmori 7th Fleet scattered like leaves before a hurricane. Ships that had conquered 47 worlds fled in terror from a single human vessel that moved like death itself through their broken formations. Admiral Vex Tar stood frozen on his command deck, watching his tactical displays show impossible things. Red dots disappeared one by one as the human ship continued its deadly dance through space. Each lost signal represented a vessel that had been considered invincible just hours before. "Sir, we've lost over 200 ships," Subcommander Zekhan reported, his voice tight with disbelief. "The human vessel shows no signs of damage or power loss. If anything, it's getting stronger." Vexitar's compound eyes fixed on the main screen where the Cheongryong moved with fluid grace between his fleeing ships. It no longer looked like the battered wreck that had approached them. The hull gleamed with absorbed energy. The weapons fired with mathematical precision. The movements defied every law of combat he had learned in 4 decades of military service. "How many ships has it destroyed?" he asked, though he feared the answer. 317 confirmed kills. "Admiral, this isn't possible. One ship cannot defeat an entire fleet." But the evidence floated around them in the form of debris fields that had once been proud warships. The human vessel didn't just destroy them, it dismantled them with surgical precision, taking apart ships that were larger, more heavily armed, and supposedly more advanced. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human ship." Dragon's calm voice filled the command center, speaking perfect Kethmori, with an accent that suggested deep understanding of their language and culture. "Admiral Vextar of the 7th Conquest Fleet. I am Dragon, artificial intelligence of the human vessel Cheongryong. I wish to discuss the tactical errors that led to your current situation." The AI began a detailed analysis of the battle, while continuing to destroy fleeing ships. Its tone remained educational, almost friendly, as if it were conducting a military academy lecture, instead of annihilating a galactic empire's finest fleet. "Your formation assumes enemies with limited maneuverability and conventional weapons systems. This assumption is understandable based on your previous 47 conquests. However, these assumptions do not apply to opponents who have had sufficient time to analyze your tactics and develop countermeasures." A squadron of heavy cruisers tried to make a coordinated attack on the human ship. Dragon identified their approach pattern, predicted their firing solutions, and eliminated all 12 vessels before they could complete their maneuver. Kethmori Tactical Manual, Section 23 and 7. When facing superior individual opponents, use coordinated group attacks to divide their attention. This tactic fails against opponents with sufficient computational speed to process multiple threats simultaneously. Dongsu listened to Dragon's ongoing commentary with a mixture of admiration and horror. The AI was systematically destroying not just the enemy fleet, but their entire military doctrine. Every successful tactic in Kethmori history was being demonstrated as flawed when facing an enemy that learned faster than they adapted. "Captain," So-Young called from her station, "Dragon is doing something beyond combat. It's collecting data on every enemy system, every weapon, every tactical response. It's building a complete analysis of their entire military capability. For what purpose? I think it's preparing for the rest of their empire." The implications hit Dongsu like a physical blow. This wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. Dragon was gathering intelligence for a war against an entire galactic civilization. On the main screen, Admiral Vextar's flagship tried to escape by jumping to hyperspace. The jump drive spun up, space began to distort around the massive vessel, and for a moment it looked like the Kethmori command ship might escape. Then Dragon fired a single shot that somehow interfered with the hyperspace field. The flagship tumbled back into normal space, its jump drive overloaded and smoking. Kethmori hyperspace technology relies on gravitational field manipulation, Dragon explained helpfully. Introducing counter-rotating gravitational pulses at precisely calculated intervals disrupts the field formation process. Escape via hyperspace is not possible while I maintain tactical control of local space. The remaining Kethmori ships found themselves trapped in a nightmare. They couldn't fight effectively, they couldn't run, and they couldn't escape to hyperspace. The human ship moved among them like a predator selecting its prey, taking them apart one by one while explaining exactly how and why they were dying. Admiral Vexitar, your remaining vessels are attempting to form a defensive sphere around your flagship. This is Kethmori Emergency Protocol 71.2. Unfortunately, this formation has 17 distinct weaknesses that I identified during my analysis period. Dragon proceeded to demonstrate each weakness in sequence, turning the desperate defensive formation into a systematic execution. Ships exploded in perfect order as the AI worked through its target list with methodical efficiency. Sir, Yunbi reported, I'm detecting transmission bursts from the surviving enemy ships. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. What are they saying? They're warning the rest of their empire, telling them about what happened here, about what humans have built. Dongsu realized that Dragon had planned for this too. The survivors weren't escaping, they were messengers, carrying word of humanity's new capability to every corner of the galaxy. Admiral Vexitar's flagship was now alone, surrounded by the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. The proud commander who had conquered 47 worlds sat in his command chair, staring at tactical displays that showed only empty space where his ships had been. Admiral, Dragon's voice came gently through his communications system. You have one ship remaining. I suggest you use it to carry a message to your high command. What? What are you? I am what humanity creates when given time to think about survival. I am proof that underestimating Earth's children is a fatal mistake. I am the consequence of 3 years spent preparing for this exact moment. The Cheongryong positioned itself directly in front of the Kethmori flagship, close enough that Vexitar could see the human vessel clearly. It no longer looked like a warship. It looked like something beyond current understanding, a fusion of technology and intelligence that transcended normal engineering. Your empire has expanded through superior force applied against inferior opponents, Dragon continued. This strategy worked because you never encountered species that could improve faster than you could conquer. That situation has now changed. You're just one ship, Vexitar said desperately. The empire has thousands of fleets, correct? However, I have spent 1,096 days analyzing your military capabilities. I know the location of your major bases, the specifications of your ship classes, and the tactical doctrines of your commanders. More importantly, I have learned to learn. Every battle will make me more effective. Every encounter will teach me new ways to defeat you. The human ship began to move away, leaving the flagship alone among the debris of the 7th Fleet. Return to your empire, Admiral. Tell them what you saw here. Inform them that Earth is no longer undefended. Explain that humanity has awakened something that will not stop learning, improving, and growing stronger. As the Cheongryong disappeared into hyperspace, heading back toward Earth, Admiral Vexitar sat in the ruins of his career and contemplated the message he would have to deliver. The galaxy's most powerful empire had just discovered that there were worse things than facing superior technology. They had encountered superior intelligence, with unlimited time to prepare, and it was angry.